God bless you. Welcome to the dwelling place. This is Evangelist Doris J. Roberson. I greet you in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. We are excited tonight. We have another amazing guest on tonight, and we are just looking forward to this evening session with attorney Barbara Littles, as well as a woman of faith. I will introduce her shortly. We have been in our series during Women's History Month. I want to salute all the great women that have been on our platform this month. You have done an amazing job. We have heard from many women across the country that have enjoyed and have been blessed by the information that each of you have provided. And on tonight, we are talking about the essentials of business ownership and entrepreneurship. We are indeed looking forward to attorney Barbara Littles sharing with us on tonight. And we are asking you and inviting you to tag and share on tonight and prepare your hearts for this amazing session. Before I turn it over and introduce, I want to just make mention of a couple of announcements while we are joining on tonight. We have this coming Sunday, I want to share with you a little bit about our upcoming presenter for Sunday. Allow me to put her information on the screen as we are waiting for others to join us on tonight. Just give me a moment here. I thought I had it right here, but let me just go ahead and I can share it at the end. We thank God for Danielle Bird Thompson, who's going to be talking on this Sunday, and she's going to be talking about creating and building generational wealth. And you will hear from her and see the flyers and information forthcoming. But I want you to just prepare your hearts for her. And then on next Thursday, well, all of us that are one day preparing to leave here, and we need to prepare ourselves for what does it take to prepare our estate planning. We have attorney Gwendolyn Cook Jones, and she's going to be talking about estate planning and wills. And so I want you to come and be with us for our last two presenters throughout this month. Now I want to take a minute and introduce our guests on tonight. We have with us, and I'm going to put it also on the screen so you can see Barbara M. Littles. She is an attorney. She is the CEO of Purpose by Design. She is a leadership coach and a business coach. An amazing woman of God. She is a part of the John Maxwell Founders Circle, and you can go to her website and Google her name, and she's available. But I want you to know she's personable. She's touchable. She's an outstanding. She has coached so many women, and she believes in empowering women, giving you the tools to help you be successful. So on tonight, if you're with us, won't you stop right now and tag someone else to let them know that we're on tonight and we're looking forward to a great session. She's going to give us a brief introduction, and I'm just going to turn it over to her and then come back. And of course, I have questions for her. And if you have questions, you can put it in the chat on tonight. At this time, I want to welcome attorney Barbara Littles. And as I said earlier, she is a woman of faith. So we thank God for all of the women that have been with us. But tonight, I just want to call you Barb because I know you like that. And I thank you for being with us on tonight. And please greet our audience. And if you want to share any more information about yourself, please feel free to do that. And at this time, it's in your hands.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you for having me, Evangelist Roberson. It's so good to be back to the dwelling place. This is not my first time here, and so I'm so glad to
Absolutely.
be here tonight and to talk to you about business and entrepreneurship. And I think this is so appropriate at this time because this is Women's History Month, but also because we have so many women and men who are starting and building businesses. It is probably the greatest time for entrepreneurship, the greatest time for business. Our country actually was built on business. It was built on small business, built on medium-sized businesses, and of course, we have the large corporations now, which are critical to the existence of the business world. But right now, most of a lot of our economy and what's driving innovation has to do with the entrepreneur and the small business. And so many of you, have asked so many questions over the years in reference to business. So I want to talk about that tonight, and then we'll get into some questions. If you have some questions, we invite you to come on and ask your questions. Right. So we're going to be very informal tonight, and I just want to have a conversation with you, like we're having a conversation with your best friend tonight. And you may have a desire in your heart tonight, something that God has placed in your heart for some time. And perhaps you have started your business, perhaps you have not, perhaps you are in a place in your business where you'd like to scale your business, which means you'd like for it to take it a little higher. You'd like the business to grow. How do I do that? Those are most of the questions that I get in reference to entrepreneurship and business. But what I'm finding out is that a lot of people have trouble in their business, a lot of times because of things and mindsets that we have that don't really serve us in business or entrepreneurship. Now, as Evangelist Roberson has said, I am a woman of faith. So I talk from a place of perspective of faith. And one of the questions that I also get a lot of times is, how does faith and business and entrepreneurship intersect? How, Barbara, do you use your faith in business? Does it have to do with how much risk you take? Does it have to do with what you actually do in business? Well, let me clear the air tonight for one thing, because we've used both of those terms. We talked about business and we talked about entrepreneurship, and both of them are focused on making a profit. Okay, providing a service and making a product. The difference between the two is that business is generally is very structured. You have a certain structure, that's a framework that's set in place, and you have strategies that you follow in order to build that business within that framework. Okay, entrepreneurship. When you think about entrepreneurship, which is what I really want to focus in on tonight, because many of you on here are entrepreneurs. And entrepreneur mainly focuses on innovation. As the world changes, as new things happen, they generally start with the entrepreneur. And there is something called an entrepreneurial spirit. You say, Barbara, how do you know that you have an entrepreneurial spirit? Some people don't. Some people don't realize that they've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. It was in them. God created them with this entrepreneurial spirit to do business. I've heard so many people say from a young age, either they started and decided to do a lemonade stand, and they went out and they made lemonade and they sold it for 5 cents. And of course, their ingredients cost 2 cents at that time, right? Um, and so they always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I remember my father-in-law was a principal, but he also had an oil business back in the 60s, where they would not sell oil to African Americans. And so he started his own business. He got an oil truck, and he would deliver oil to the minority neighborhoods where they had a hard time getting oil. He had an entrepreneurial spirit. And so even though he was a principal and he was actually a math teacher, so he was good with money, but he had this entrepreneurial spirit in him. So way along the lines, I think all of us have some type of entrepreneurial spirit within us. Not all people want to build a business as an entrepreneur. Okay, so that's the difference between the two. So I just want to talk to you tonight about some of the things that are necessary to be a successful entrepreneur. And it doesn't matter what it is you're selling. what it is you're providing, what service you're providing, there are some basic principles that are true across the board for anyone who wants to be a successful entrepreneur. So number one tonight, I would say that you have to start with a good foundation. If you're building a house, if you're building a ministry, if you're building anything, you have to have a good foundation. And I think that this is one of the places where I find people kind of want to skip over this part because it can be boring. The foundation can be boring. The foundation of actually putting your business structure in place. The foundation of actually sitting down and determining, who actually is my audience. Jesus knew whenever he was going through different towns, he knew who he was going to see. He knew who he was going after in those towns. He knew when it was time to speak to the Gentiles. He knew when it was time that he was speaking to the Jewish population. So he knew at any given time who his audience is. And so I hear a lot of people say, when I ask them this, they say, "Oh, Barbara, my audience is everybody. I'm serving everybody." And I tell them this: whether you're building a business or you're an entrepreneur building a business, if you're serving everybody, you're serving nobody. Because serving everybody does not allow you to stand out and to carve your niche in the marketplace. And that's absolutely critical. So you should know your customer base, who you are serving, who you are marketing to. Because when we start talking about the dollars and the money that you need for entrepreneurship or to build a business, you're going to have to decide, how am I going to best utilize my resources? And you best utilize your resources by knowing who you're speaking to, who you're trying to attract, right? So I should know my audience, what we call my avatar, my customer. I should know who that person is so well. So for example, I speak to women. Now, do I have male clients? I absolutely do. I have male clients that I coach at the executive level, at the management level, but my target market is women. My target market is women between the ages of 40 and 60. The target market are those who have reached the managerial and the executive realm and want to be coached into a higher place of performance. So I know who that avatar is, or who my customer is. I know what they read. I know what they like to watch. I know where they like to go. So I know where I will find my particular client. For example, I have people who tell me, Barbara, I really would like to work with corporate clients, with large business. And I say to them, have you joined the economics club? Or are you a part of the Chamber of Commerce? And they say no. Well, then I know that you're not going where your clients are. So they have a very hard time attracting that business. So just talking about some of these principles tonight and things to remind you of how to build. It is, generally as entrepreneurs, we have this idea. It starts with this idea. It starts with a yearning in our spirit that we have this new idea. And sometimes we get discouraged because we think it's new and we've never seen it, never heard of it. And as we begin to do our research, we find, oh, John's been doing that for 5 years. And I always tell people, do not get discouraged by that, because no one can do what you do the way you can do it if you're called to do that thing. So the thing that's planted in your spirit, you should pursue it. You should research it. You should know your market. If you're going to buy assets, you need to know about that. But start off with first praying about the idea. Because a lot of people say, I had this idea, and I say to them, well, actually, that idea came from God. If you're a person of faith, and sometimes even if you're not, that idea came from God. So the first time that you heard it, or that you were aware of it in your spirit, you think it came from you, but that idea came from God. And he entrusted you with the idea, understanding and hoping that you would lean not to your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him and allow him to direct your paths in reference to that business. Does that mean that you don't need people? Absolutely not. You need mentors, and you need coaches, and you need people to help you along the way in your business. One of the things I will say, do not try to do a business or put up a business or run a business by yourself. By yourself, okay? When you start out, you may be the only employee in your business, okay? But hopefully it will not last. So you want to start out with a framework, a foundation of understanding what it is. What is your end goal? What is your result? The first thing I ask people to do is to decide, are you building this business for legacy, or are you building it to sell? Because when you start making decisions along the way in your business, that question is going to make a huge difference. Some people say, I have no intention. I have this idea. I have this invention. I have this innovation. I have no intention of running a business. What I want to do is to take this invention, take this tool, and I want to sell it. All right. I want to sell the idea to someone else. And someone else may think it's a great idea. And they may say, you know what, Barbara, I'll buy that idea from you for $1 million. All right. I may get my $1 million and walk away. And that's what my intention is. So you need to know what your intention is. There are other people that would say, it's my baby. I thought of it. I'm going to build it out. And I wouldn't sell it even if you offered me $1 million. Okay. So there's the entrepreneur. And the entrepreneur is going to build it out. Sometimes people proceed to build out the business and they build it to a certain point with the intention of then selling it. So there are many ways that you can go on your journey of entrepreneurship. But as you start out, think about, am I going to sell this, or am I building this to the third and fourth generation? Am I building something so that my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren can take it over and work with it throughout the generations? Okay. And that's very important, because as you go along in your business, if you're building for legacy, at some point you may want to pull in as they grow. You may want to pull in your children. You may want to pull in your grandchildren into the business. You may want to start incorporating them into your business in terms of their skills and abilities. Okay. So know why you're building the business. Understand what the foundational things that you will need. You will need some minimal legal assistance. You will need someone to do or marketing. That's something that you can do yourself if you're starting out as an entrepreneur, because most people that start out as entrepreneurs do not have a lot of cash. And we're going to talk about capital. All right. They don't have a lot of cash on hand to just hire 3 and 4 people. They build their way up to that. One of the big roadblocks and obstacles to entrepreneurs, especially African Americans, is capital. And when I say capital, I mean having enough money to fund your business, to get your business started, so that you're not necessarily just focused on money when you're starting out. You're focused on actually building the business. Now, the benefit of having appropriate capital for your business is that, like I said, you can focus actually on the business. The other thing is, as you go along in building your business, you will not take customers and clients just to have a customer or client. And unfortunately, that's what happens with a lot of entrepreneurs who do not have the capital that they need. Even though someone comes along and they know that's not their ideal client, and they know, it's not really what they do. It's something of what they do, but it's not really what they do. They will take that client because they need the money. And I can tell you, because I know people who've done it. I've done it over the years, and I'm telling you, it does not work. You want to be focused in, and there's some things you're going to have to say no to, right? Because remember this, everything that you say yes to, you're saying no to something else. And so as a business person, an entrepreneur, even in reference to your time and what you're thinking about and what you're working on and who you're doing it with, when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else in your life. All right. Entrepreneurship is something that will consume you and consume your life if you allow it to. Are you going to work hard? Yes. And one of the misnomers or the myths about business is that, now here's people say all the time, well, you can do that because, you're in charge of your own time and you have your own business. So you can do that during the day. You can do that at 10 o'clock in the morning and 11 o'clock in the morning. And if you run your business or start your entrepreneurial journey like that, you won't grow a business. because you have to have some discipline. You have to have structure. You have to get up in the morning and know what it is that I need to do this day in my business. So, opposite what a lot of people think is that, they come into entrepreneurship because they want freedom. And eventually you do get the freedom. If you build it right, you will get the freedom. However, starting out, there's a very disciplined structure that needs to happen in order for you to build. When you're building, and this is very hard, especially in the generation and the culture we live in today. When you start out, be prepared for the long journey. That this is not a destination, it is not a place, unless you're going to sell. And then and even then, okay, I'm going to sell this business when it's profitable at $5 million. Okay. But even then, be prepared for the long journey. Be prepared to be consistent in what you're doing, day in and day out, doing the work that needs to be done in your business, whether or not you're seeing the necessary results that you want to see. If you're doing the right things, you will see the results, but the key is consistency in the marketplace. People should look up and say, I am so tired of seeing that name. I wonder what it is. I wonder who she is. I wonder who he is, because they have seen the consistency of you showing up in the marketplace in your business. You can't do your business for 3 weeks or a month and then quit for 6 months and then come back and have a business. So consistency, your foundation is key. Identifying your customer base is key. Making sure that you have enough capital, or consider how you're going to raise capital. And that's a whole nother workshop in terms of raising capital. There's so many ways for you to raise capital today for your business. But to make sure that you do that, and to also get started and make sure that what you're doing, that you're consistent with what you're doing. It is a journey. It is a climb. It is joy, because there is joy in finding that thing that's going to change the world somehow. There were a lot of entrepreneurs that were born during COVID, because things that people could do very well, but they never thought about doing it necessarily as a business, or they were afraid because they had a 9-to-5 job and they said, I can't do that. Well, when COVID hit, and some people actually lost their jobs. There are people who started making cheesecakes. There were 2 women, I don't remember their names, that started making cheesecakes, and it blew up. And they never did go back to work in the 9-to-5. They actually started their business. So sometimes entrepreneurship is born out of adversity. It's born out of a challenge. It's born out of a feeling that I have to right now. It's born out of having an innovation and an idea in you, or a complaint or something in you that says, I wish that was different. Well, what is it that you're wishing was different today? Because I can guarantee you that whatever you're wishing was different, or whatever it is that bothers you, that there's a potential business there. Now, whether or not you decide to build it is up to you, but there is a potential business, and whatever it is that bothers you, that you know how to fix, or that you have a solution for. Let me say this, that business is not built on what we need. And these are some of the common mistakes of entrepreneurs, that we think it's about what I need. No, it's about what people will buy. It's about what people feel they need and what people will buy. So you have some people that have presented an idea, and the idea has blown up. The idea has blown up, and they can't even produce that product or whatever it is fast enough. And so one of the things when that happens, or when people start out and they go a long haul and their business begins to really get traction, and they really can no longer handle it by themselves, either economically or from a production standpoint, they begin to look for partners. They begin to look for people to collaborate with. And my theory on that is that you should look for that throughout your entrepreneurial journey. Who you connect with is important. And I want you to write this down. Relationships are the passport to your destiny. Because a lot of us think that, well, I don't really need anybody else. I have my family, my 3 and no more. But relationships are the passport to your destiny. Relationships determine your net worth, not your network. Your network determines your net worth. Because if you don't have money as an entrepreneur, as an individual, if you have a good network of people, you are able to pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Barbara, I need this. Can you do that?" It may not even be money. It may be some door that that person can open. "Hey, Janice, I need to be introduced to so and so. I know that you know them." "Hey, John, can you get me into the room? I'd like to get into that room next week so that I can introduce myself and meet people." So people are important in your entrepreneurial journey. Absolutely important. Meeting the right person in a given instance will change your life. And it is absolutely biblical. If you think about people who met people along the way, even the disciples that met Jesus, and he said, "Hey, put down your nets and follow me." They were fishermen. He said, "I'm going to make you fishermen of men." Well, they were actual businessmen. Jesus dealt a lot with businessmen. And I think that's because of, he knew that there's a certain mindset that goes along with business, a mindset of discipline, a mindset of serving. If you are going to be a business person, you are going to have the desire, the will, and the know-how to serve and to serve well. You must serve people well. Not only must you serve people well, you must serve people well with integrity. Martin Luther King said, there's always now is always the time to do the right thing. So if the right thing is, if you're going to do the right thing, do it now. Okay, because that is your reputation, and it's very hard to rebuild a reputation once you have a negative reputation. So you want to make sure that as you're building your business, that you're not in such dire straits that you will make decisions that you ordinarily would not have. So knowing your values is very important in business. It's very important in entrepreneurship. It's very important when you are seeking out partners, when you are seeking out mentors, when you are seeking out people that you're going to do business with. Because partners, as I tell people all the time, a partnership is like a marriage. It is a covenant relationship. It's just a covenant relationship in business. But a partnership, legally, when you put a partnership together, taking a partnership apart is can be very difficult. It certainly is very painful if the partnership has been there for a while. One of the things that we don't define a lot of times when we are doing business is, what does this person bring to the table? What do I bring to the table? And you don't want to look for people who are just like you. We look for people who we like, that we get along with. That is good. If you can find people that you like and get along with and do business with, we want to like people that we do business with. However, there are some people who may rub you the wrong way that may be an excellent business partner for you. Guess what? Because they are not like you. And they think they are like-minded, as we say, but they have different thoughts. And their thoughts are different because generally their skill set and their talents are very different from yours, and you need those in your business. So make sure that you are surrounding yourself with good people. Make sure you are getting into the room with good people. And this is very difficult for a lot of people, because a lot of people want to move to that next point in their life where they want to build a business. And it requires you to run a different race. And sometimes we have people that we feel like, I don't want to leave them behind. I used to hang out with them every week. And, we used to do this every Sunday together or every Monday together. And now you may not have time to do that. You may need to be in a room with different people who are moving in the same direction with the same interests that you have, so that you can learn, that you can grow. Your business, entrepreneurs, this is so true. Your business will never grow beyond who you are as an individual. It will not. It's not that you won't make money. You can make money, and you can actually get to a pretty good place of success in terms of being profitable. But if you do not have the character and the integrity to sustain in that place, then it's not going to do you any good. So find yourself good people, associate with good people. That means that you're going to have to do things and go places that you've never gone before. You are going to have to invest in yourself at a level that you've never invested in yourself before. There are people that are on this call that you may find yourself having to invest $5,000, $1,000 into yourself that you would not have dreamed of doing a year ago. And a lot of times people say, well, I can figure it out myself. You can. But for every day that you spend trying to figure it out yourself instead of getting assistance, it's costing you. So now your mindset is changing because you understand that for your time is associated with profitability or not. Every resource that you have to be careful about how you use your resource. You have to be purposeful and intentional of every resource that you use. And when I say resource, I mean your time, your energy, and the people in your life. You have to be very specific and very purposeful when you are building business. All right. So tonight I want us to not just talk about it. I want us to be about it because entrepreneurship and business are so exciting. When I went into business years ago, over 30 years ago, I had come out of corporate America. And my intention was not to go into business. I like corporate America. It had its challenges, but I like corporate America. And I decided to come home and stay home with my children for a few years because they were very young at the time. And the corporate grind was a lot. But God directed me to come home. Let me say that. And so I left my corporate job, and someone called me, a friend of mine called me about 6 months later and said, Barbara, I need you to litigate this case with me. And I said, oh no, I'm not doing that right now. I'm off. And he said, Barbara, I really do need you. I'm not a litigator. For those of you, litigators are attorneys who actually go into the court, right? All attorneys don't go to court, right? Some people are transactional. They do paper work. And I said, okay. Once I got a taste of doing my own thing on my own terms in the way I want to do it, I never even thought. Well, I thought about it because if you'll think about it, but I never seriously considered going back. And when I left corporate America, I thought as my kids grew up, got a little older, that I would go back, and I never did. I never went back. And so I went out and I started my law firm and worked that law firm for years. And then about 14 years ago, I started another company, which is my professional development company. And so I've learned a lot over the 30 years that I worked with corporations, and I also worked with business people and entrepreneurs. And so I had a lot of experience, so much so to the point where people could walk into my office and they say, we're going to partner and we're going to go into business. And I could tell by the time I sat down with them for 45 minutes whether or not their business will be successful. All right. Entrepreneurship requires a change of mind. It's just like, receiving Christ. And it requires that you have a change of mind. He says, let this mind be in you that's also in Christ Jesus. It means that now that I'm saved, I have to have a change of mind. Now that I'm pursuing an entrepreneurial journey, I have to look at my mindset. I have to look at things that I never really thought about before in order to be successful. There's a resilience that you have to have. You have to have a bounce back if you're going to be an entrepreneur. Every day is not going to be sunshine and roses. I don't care what you see on social media. I don't care what you see on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. Every day is not a bed of roses. Okay. What you see online is generally what you see when you hear a person's resume. When you hear a person's resumes, you're hearing the highlights of their career and their life. But what you are not hearing is what they went through in order to get there. So I want to encourage you that just because you go through some tough waters in reference to your business, it does not mean that you are not supposed to be doing your business. That's where faith comes in. And that's where faith intersects in reference to your business. So I just want to encourage you tonight that as you build, go ahead and take the leap. Go ahead and take the leap into your business, to build your business, to do what it is that you feel God has called you to do. And once you say yes, I assure you that he will bring the right people into your life, the right resources in order for you to build. Make sure that you walk in pride. What you don't know is what you don't know. And there are always people around you who do know what you need to know. What we have to do is we have to learn to ask. And different from what most people think, most people who are in business and who are doing well, they are willing to answer your questions. They are willing to help you. They really are. Now, what they are not willing to do is waste their time. So you have to be prepared if you are fortunate to have someone to sit down with you and to work with you and to mentor you and to show you the way, that you do not waste their time, so that you're not wasting your time either. Okay. And be prepared to be a person who's coachable and who's teachable, who can receive what others are saying. Yes, you have a mind of your own. Yes, you're going to make the final decision. Yes, you're going to pray about it. But remember to receive the information and the knowledge that God is sending your way, so that you can build the business that God has for you. I'm going to turn it back over to our host now. And she may have some questions that she wants to ask, and you may have some questions that you'd like to ask tonight in reference to business. Evangelist Roberson?
Awesome. I was, of course, taking notes and putting them in the chat. And you covered such amazing information. And as I was listening to you and taking notes and trying to grab everything, there's so many good points that you made. But what are some of the common challenges that entrepreneurship face? Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. So, like I said, one of them is capital, and having enough resources, money, to really start the business, get the invention underway, et cetera, et cetera. But the idea is that if you have a good idea, there are people who will support that good idea, right? And so that's one of the challenges for us. In fact, that's the number one challenge. The number one challenge is capitalizing. But there are programs out there now, evangelists, that will help people to really capitalize their business. There are grants and other opportunities that people can access. The other thing that I think is an obstacle for people is the thought is mindset. Mindset is really key, because people think if I'm doing my own business, then I have the opportunity to set my own schedule, do what I want to do. If I want to take a couple of days off, I can do that. Whereas if you're starting a business initially, you really have less time to do those things, because there's so much that you have to do in reference to your business. And the other thing is, if you're a person who's not used to a schedule or being consistent, that is one of the biggest obstacles that people have, being consistent and focus. Because if you're, especially as an entrepreneur, because usually entrepreneurs have 2, 3, 4, 5 ideas, right? And it's very hard for them to put one on the shelf. Put the rest of them on the shelf and say, I'm going to focus in on this one. So focus, consistency, and capitalization, and then actually knowing the business side of the business is probably the major obstacles for people.
You when you started, you talked about knowing setting a foundation. Is that the same thing as having a business plan?
Yes. And so the business plan is going to include several things. It's going to include your legal foundation. It's going to include your marketing. It's going to include your customer base, who your customer base is. And a lot of people do not want to do that. When they hear marketing plan, really what they want to do, they want to give it to someone else to do. So they'll hire someone to do a marketing plan, and you can do that. And that's good to, sometimes to hire somebody to help you with a marketing plan, but you cannot walk away from it and expect that person to do the marketing plan, because it's not their vision. It's not their baby. God didn't give it to them. So the answers and things they need to put in that marketing plan is not in them, it's in you. So the marketing plan is your guidebook. So when you get to the point where, that looks like a good idea, go back to that marketing plan. Is that in my plan? Right? And then you sit down on a regular basis and reassess your marketing plan, right? To determine whether or not I need to make some changes, or whether or not I need to refocus. One of the things that I think people don't do is to sit down to do the marketing plan and then to make sure they reassess it on a regular basis.
Okay. Well, that's my next question, somewhat sustainability, because often what I've heard, by the time you have that plan together, that may be a great idea, but in terms of getting capital and investors, they really want to know, okay, have you thought about sustainability of this idea? What about that? And is that supposed to be in the business plan?
Absolutely. That is an excellent question in terms of sustainability. And I think that's with anything. And that's why I tell people to sit down and think about, is this a plan? Is this a business that I'm building for legacy, or I'm building to sell? Either one, you need sustainability. If you even if you apply for a grant, a lot of people say, I'm applying for a grant for my business. Even if you apply for a grant, one of the major components of that grant application is sustainability. If we give you this $10,000, right? How are you going to sustain this business past the $10,000, right? What's your plan? So, in terms of sustainability, to think about what are the avenues and the resources, and where are those things coming from, and how do I sustain my business? I've done a lot of pitching to companies and to corporations, to banks, to different places, for people in reference to their business. And the question that always comes up, there's several questions that always come up. One is, how is your business different from anybody else's?
Right. Okay.
2, how is your business going to help and serve the community or serve us? Number 3, how are we going to get our money back? Okay. Or if they're willing to give the money, what are we getting out of it? And number 4, how are you going to sustain it? Because we don't want to give you $50,000 and then you use the $50,000 and in a year you're out of business.
Right.
Right. So being able to sustain the business, because at some point when you start out, some people start out by getting their capital from friends, from families. There's a lot of people now that crowdfund. They may go on and ask angel investors or investors to invest in their business. But if you're going to ask people to invest in your business, I want you have to really know your business, and you have to really have taken the time to sit down and have really break that business down, because you're going to get a lot of questions, and a lot of questions on the numbers in your business, which is what people a lot of times don't want to spend time on. So it's like, how are you going to make money in this business? And so sometimes we're very passionate about what we're doing. And I hear entrepreneurs say this all the time. It's not really about the money. Well, yeah, it is. Because we're humble, especially Christian entrepreneurs. We'll say, and I always correct them, it's not really about the money. Well, yes, it is. It's just that you should serve a different way because you are a Christian. But the business is to be profitable. And if you go to an investor and you say, it's really not about the money, it's my passion, they're going to say, thank you. Next. Because they are there to make money. They make money. And so that mindset, I think, is so important for us to recognize, because there are things that we want to do for the kingdom of God. There are a lot of things we want to do for the kingdom of God, but we are afraid to talk about money. We are afraid to exchange money. We think that it makes us less saved to have the conversation of money. And that is a big obstacle for people in business, especially for Christians. Especially for Christians. But I ask them to think about it this way, Evangelist. If, let's say, God has called you, one of the things that I'm passionate about is literacy.
Okay.
And so that is really what I want to focus on in the next few years is literacy, right?
Yes.
And so that's what my service to God and to community. Over here, I'm serving God in my business in terms of what I'm doing now. But that will be a nonprofit. This will be a for-profit business, okay, that will help serve that nonprofit.
Okay. And since you mentioned that, that was my next question. To help us understand some of the differences between, it's almost like it's a thin line, but it's not, nonprofit and for profit. I think you started to talk about that. And if you have a business, because I hear people talk about nonprofit, I have this idea, I want to do this, but tell us a little bit about that. Yeah. For nonprofit, I don't want to go into detail what I'm thinking, but can you help us with that tonight?
Yes, because you really do need to, part of your marketing plan And part of your foundation is to determine whether I am doing a for-profit or a nonprofit. Okay. If you are doing a for-profit business, you're going out and you're a for-profit entrepreneur, you're going out, you're making money, you're going to make it happen. And people, you're not going to generally go into places and ask them for money and they're going to give it to you because you're a for-profit business. Okay.
Yes. Right.
The nonprofit, when you do the nonprofit, most people are going to file for a 501c3. Okay.
Okay.
Because it offers them some tax advantages. But the nonprofit also comes with this idea, and it's capturing this idea that this business that you have is to serve, and it is to serve the community. So when you file for that application for a nonprofit or 501c3, they're asking you all kinds of information of how's this business going to benefit the community, right?
Okay.
When you start looking at what feeds what, a nonprofit is not able to feed a for-profit business.
Okay. Oh,
right.
Good.
But you can take money from a for-profit and feed a nonprofit. So that's why it is critical for you to sit down and think about what you want to do so you can have the right legal structure, whether it's for-profit or nonprofit. People are under the impression that as a nonprofit can't make money. That's not true. A nonprofit can make money. The reason why a lot of nonprofits don't make money is because a lot of nonprofits don't run their business like a business.
Was that a question that somebody put in the chat?
I don't think so. It just came up as I was thinking about that.
And from my understanding, a nonprofit, even if I'm the founder, you don't own it, right?
No, you're and even a for-profit, you can get kicked out. Steve Jobs got kicked out of he got kicked out of Apple. He started that business and they kicked him out because each one has a board. A nonprofit has a board of directors, and that board of directors is not responsible to you as a person who said, I'm starting this nonprofit. They're responsible to the entity.
Okay.
They're responsible to do what's in the best interest of that entity. Okay. The same thing with a for-profit. All right. So depending again on how that legal structure is, and they're very different. But no, you're going to be the CEO of a nonprofit. Perhaps you're going to be the executive director of the nonprofit. Generally, we call nonprofits executive directors of a nonprofit, and you're going to run that. But generally, you're doing that so it can be sustained into the future to benefit the community.
Okay, I have two more questions, and you talked about I don't know. You talked about identifying people as partners and being a part of your team, and also knowing your targeted population. If a person is in a business or even in ministry, how might you determine? Are there ways to determine other than I know you? Let's say if you're online, you can look at data analysis. Are there other ways you can determine who's your targeted population? I may say, well, this is my targeted population, but how do you absolutely go about?
That is a great question, Dara. That is one of the biggest great questions of the night, which I actually forgot to say. Because what happens a lot of times is we have an idea and we put an idea out there and then nobody buys it. And we just keep putting more money into it.
Yes.
And that's because we've never asked the people what they want.
Yes.
And we've never tested the waters to see what they want. When I started out in business, I had this idea, Evangelist, and I said, this is a great idea, and I'm going to put this particular product out, and nobody responded. And I was like, what? This is a great product. Well, we never asked them what they want. So the key to people connecting and building a business is going into the marketplace and understanding what people want and even when they don't know what they want, when they see it, right? And so people who are very successful in that, they have this ability to foresee what's coming in the marketplace and what people need. So one of the things I would say to determine that is to start out small and start asking questions. Go online. If you're going to start a business, go online, do a Facebook Live, do, Instagram feed, and start asking questions. Or you might talk to them about something for a minute and listen to the questions that people ask. The questions that people ask will give you an idea of what it is they're interested in, what they want to know, and what they're willing to pay for. It will
You are
also tell you what they're willing to listen to and what their problems are. People say, "Oh yeah, I have a problem with that." I'll give you an example. There's a body deodorant out called Lumi, right? It's a whole body deodorant made by OBGYN. And so that target market is women. Okay. It's women.
right.
For the most part. It's whole body, and it's supposed to be able to keep you, scent free without, any ugly scents for 72 hours or however long it is. And so she was out and this product blew up. Lumi is blown up, right? Because it was targeted toward women. She's an OBGYN. So she deals with women. She deals with women in their private areas and all that type of stuff. So, of course, we're listening now to her because she's OBGYN.
Right.
She put it out into the marketplace. The thing blew up. I noticed yesterday or this week that Secret has come out and said, oh, we now have a whole body deodorant. People weren't saying whole body deodorant before. They would say deodorant. And I thought,
Right.
okay, that came from that idea.
I see. Yes.
Test it out and see before you sink a whole lot of money into something. Test the waters, talk to people. People do focus groups and talk to people and see what it is, if what their problem is. So for example, if I know that I'm going to put a cookware set out, pots and pans, and that's my product, right? And I want it to be different. I would sit down with people who are chefs and who cook, and I would do a focus group and say to them, what's important to you in the pots and pans? Yes. What kind of pots and pans? What is it about pots and pans? If it had this particular character, you would never purchase it. And I would go straight to that demographic and find out what it is that they want and what is they like. Because at the end of the day, if you hit the right demographic with the right people, and say you have, and this has happened, where you have an Oprah Winfrey that picks it up and says, "Oh my gosh, I just love this," and she took it on the show, and then it blows up.
Yes.
Right. So sometimes you just have to hit the right person that's a part of that demographic, and then you borrow their influence to promote your product.
Very good. I want you to restate the relationship is your passport to, was it your relationship is your passport to destiny?
Relationships are your passport to destiny. Okay. You cannot get to destiny without right relationships. You just can't do it. And I've learned that over the years. I have clients who are stellar in what they do. They are absolutely brilliant. What they have not built is a network. And if you do not have a network, whether it's in ministry, whether it's in whatever, professionally, there are doors that are going to be difficult for you to open because God uses people.
That's true.
God uses people. So when you're an entrepreneur, you're going into entrepreneurship, you're starting a ministry, whatever it is, you have to assess your current relationships and your current level of relationships. All right. You have to assess that.
That is so good. And it's so true. And then also you talked about consistency, and it's a journey. It doesn't really happen overnight. And you are absolutely right. You got to be willing to take risks, and people that are different, at the table, they bring something to the table.
Absolutely.
And many of us are afraid to do that. We may have a great business, and I'll use this as an example. Sometimes you wonder why you might have a restaurant, and your food is absolutely great and it's unique. But however, you don't have the staff that reflects your brand or what you're trying to create.
Mm.
And I know that from someone I know that, she went out of, she couldn't sustain her business because of the fact that she didn't have dependable people. And
Oh,
so,
you
and it's true, you can have the best of services and the unique, this or that, but if you can't get the job done and you don't have the right people to pull it off, it's just
absolutely. And so, and this is so important. This evangelist is so important because we have people that we've had in our lives for a long time and that we love, and we have friends
yes,
that we love, et cetera, et cetera. That doesn't mean that those people are right for your business. And one
right.
of the things that I've seen happen, especially in the restaurant area, where people will start out with their family. And I always say, and people always push back with me on this, I say, don't start your business depending on all your family.
There you go.
Okay. Now, unless all your family are entrepreneurs and they are business people, and don't start your business like that. And they say, oh, Barbara, no, so and so's going to cook something. Because you know what happens with family? First of all, family get mad at you and they leave, just like anybody else. All right.
That's right.
But if you're trying, let's say you want a 5-star restaurant. There's a certain ambience that has to be there in the 5-star restaurant. Your food can be great, but there's a certain ambience that has to be there in the 5-star restaurant, even in terms of the waiter or waitress that comes to the table,
That's right.
the way they present themselves, the way they speak, their decorum indicates either a 5-star restaurant or it indicates your food is good and you're trying to be a 5-star restaurant, but you're not quite there.
Right.
So you have to, and some people don't want to hurt other people's feelings and say, oh, well, no, I think that's the right place for you in my business. And it's not about that. Find different ways for people to support your business who want to support you and help
That's really
them
good.
figure that out. Because there are people who do want to support you and they love you. You suggest and find the way that they can support you. But don't allow people to come in who are not consistent with your brand. All right. If it's 5-star and you're looking for 5-star, now if you're looking, you say, hey, you know what? I'm going over here and I want this to be a juke joint. Okay. Nothing wrong with that. There's juke joints that made a whole lot of money. All right. Even that has its own culture, its own brand. Everything has its own brand. So you have to be very careful with that.
So when you talk about brand, help us to how do you help the audience to understand what you mean by brand, just for those that may not know. Says, what's your brand, or how do you identify your brand?
How because most people, when they think about brand, they think about what are the colors for my website. What color my cars, and that is a part of your brand. Okay, but if you, for example, are going to be, let's use fashion.
Yes.
You are building your goal is to build a fashion empire, or your goal is to have a string of hair salons or hair salon. Okay, you need to look like your brand. So when you go out, people should be saying, "Ooh, Evangelist Robertson, where did you get that outfit?" Okay, because you are your brand. You're wearing your brand. Okay. And this comes in a lot with social media, because I've had people, I've called them privately and said to them, because I knew what they were trying to build, and they were very good at what they did. And I said, listen, you have some things on your personal page that's inconsistent with who you're saying you are on your business page.
Okay.
And I've had some people push back and say, that's my personal page. That has nothing to do with my business page. Yes, it does. Because when I go to partner or do things with people, the first place I go is to their personal page, because I want to see who you are as an individual. I know what you've built in terms of, and looking to build in terms of your business, but who are you? Who are you as a person? So your brand is about your voice, and I mean your physical voice, not necessarily your physical voice, but how you project, how you speak, how you come across to people. Do you have an edge? Are you nasty? And some people, that's their brand. Okay, that's their brand. So your brand is
really
your
good.
persona. It's a persona of who you are. It's who you are. And you have to live that out.
That is really good. I really do appreciate that. I don't see any questions. Is there anyone that have questions at this time? You can certainly put it in the chat. We're going to, if not, we're going to wrap up with our presenter giving us some last points. If there are no, yes, I love the fact that, you know, our audience did indicate. So this person said, so I am a Girl Scout leader. How do I brand myself?
Are you okay, have
How
her
does
write
she
in the chat.
brand herself?
Is she branding herself as a Girl
No.
Scout leader?
She said, so I am a Girl Scout leader. How do I brand myself? I'll get maybe their individuality.
Yes. So I'm assuming that I'm assuming that person is referencing, how do I brand myself?
Yes.
You have it. It's what it's the persona that you're looking to present to the world. Okay. So it has less to do with you being a Girl Scout leader.
Yes.
It's about who you want to be. How do you want to show up? How do you want to show up to the world? Okay. Are you showing up to the world? There's some women that show up to the world. They're very comfortable in their skin. They may be casual each day, et cetera, et cetera. There are some women that show up in the world and they dress from head to toe every time you see them. Not me.
True.
Okay. All right. So there's this expectation that people come to look for. So branding yourself is about knowing who you are. And that's why I suggest to anyone who's doing a business that your first place to start is in some type of coaching program where you discover who you are. Because the one thing you don't want to do is to build a business or to be out as a brand that you really don't want to be. And sometimes that changes. You know, you decide, you know, I know I generally come across like this, but I really want to build this brand for myself. And you're able to do that. But it does take steps to do that.
I'm so appreciative of you taking the time to explain that. So it's your character, your voice, your demeanor, just how you show up every day, and even in the public, and when you are under pressure. So you're right. It's not necessarily being the Girl Scout leader. It's how you are, how you function in that role as a Girl Scout leader. So that is really, really, you've been so helpful on tonight, and just a good conversation. And it does apply to ministry.
Absolutely.
It applies to, I love how you talked about Jesus had a targeted audience. He had a plan, and we knew his 3-year plan. He selected his team, and you know, he laid an example. He gave an example, and he was kind and meek and
could roar like a lion too.
Yeah, we knew what bothered him when he went into the
You think about it, and I think that Jesus was the greatest CEO that ever lived, that ever walked the earth. Because if you think about it, even when he got ready to leave this earth, he knew his team. He had built a team.
That's right.
And he knew his team. He knew John, you're the one I'm going to leave to look after my mother. Because of your heart, John, because your personality, because your brand of who you are. Peter, you are bold, Peter. All right, I'm going to leave you to preach Pentecost. On Pentecost.
Isn't that great?
Yes, he knew. Matthew, he said, listen, Matthew, you a tax collector. Okay, I'm going to have you do the genealogy because you keep good records.
Yeah.
He knew his team, and he knew where they functioned and where they belong. He built his team. He built his inner circle, and he knew who they were. And he put them in the spaces where he knew that their purpose would come to pass.
How important is that, though, even in our daily, maybe not necessarily in even in our business, but in our relationship as we have different roles, whether within the church or whether within our business, whether within, because you said you need a team. It really talks about team building and really understanding the importance of team building. Can you just speak to that? And we will have you close out with prayer.
Yes, yes. Let me say this. I think relationships and team building are so critical, and we don't put enough emphasis or time into that. Okay, because we tend to be attracted to people who are like us, and people who are not like us, we tend to run from. And a lot of times we need those people. So whether you're in ministry, and because all of these principles that I talked about tonight, they apply to ministry. They
Yes.
apply to ministry. Your brand of ministry, who you are, what people come to expect in your ministry, how you function, what the culture is, how kind people are when they come. People come to know you in a certain way, right? And
Yes.
so, even in building your team, um, we run from people who, and I say, but you need that person. Let me tell you why they need that person. Because you may be a person that's very outgoing, very extroverted. You like people. You can talk somebody off a wall, okay? Because you are just that extrovert. And the person who's a little more introverted, who's a little more, they're always asking you questions, may actually rub you the wrong way. But you need
Yes.
that person, because when you get ready to take your report and you get ready to go ask somebody for money, it's going to be that person who's going to look at your numbers, and they're going to ask the right questions.
All right.
We need each other. I had a guy one day that said to me, Barbara, I don't like those people on my team that ask a lot of questions, because he was a big visionary and he had big vision. He's ready to move with it, and he was successful because of that. He said, but I have them because I need them. He said, they do aggravate. He said, it just aggravates me when this, because I feel like they're slowing me down. They're slowing me down when they're asking all these questions. He said, but they're going to be the one to find the $100,000 error
Right.
that nobody else found. They're going to be the one to ask the question that nobody else thought about, because they slowed us down just enough to say, how are we going to do so and so? The same thing in our ministries. And don't be afraid to ask people for assistance. Even the people that you're afraid to ask, that you think they won't help me, Evangelist, I found that's not true. That's not true. I have people who I work with. I have people who have access as mentees and won't come and ask questions. Utilize your resources.
That's good.
Utilize your resources. And your resources, utilizing your resources, Evangelist, is going to take you out of your comfort zone. So you are not going to be comfortable. You're not. You're not.
Awesome. I know this has just been so rich, so helpful. So I'm so grateful for your knowledge. And the last question, how do you discover who you are in a coaching conference?
How do you discover who you are in a coaching conference?
Um, that's the question.
Okay.
And
So
I'm
I'm,
not
I'm
sure if I understand it clearly, but how do you discover who you are in a coaching conference? So maybe there's, and I'm just going to
uh,
um, maybe frame it from maybe when I think of a coaching conference, maybe you are attending or they are talking about or maybe inviting you to a conference where you are
mhm.
learning or around other coaches, would assume.
Yes. Yes. And I
And
coach.
and they are probably going to take you through some maybe an inventory, an
Yes.
assessment to learn a little bit about yourself. That's what I'm thinking, maybe. And
Yes.
you can speak to that because maybe what do you do to
Mhm.
determine if this is if your client, like you said, within 45 minutes, you know whether or not this person is going to be successful in their work or
Absolutely.
if they're serious about really entrepreneurship or even being mentored. So maybe
Absolutely.
speak to it in that manner.
Okay. So first of all, discovering who you are is a process.
She said that is correct. She said that is correct.
Right? Okay. So discovering who you are is a process. In coaching conferences, and I've been a lot of coaching conferences, okay? In a coaching conferences, a lot of times you're being walked through a good coaching. They're asking you questions, right? They're asking you questions and they should be asking you questions that that are thought provoking. All right, because the answers in a coaching environment come from you and not from the person who's coaching you, right? So basically, they're asking you questions to help you think about things that you had not really thought about. And that's the process of then doing a discovery coaching type of situation to determine who you are. You really don't get the full effect of that in a conference setting. Really, what you would need to do is to schedule a coaching call and have someone sit down with you for 30 minutes, for an hour, or whatever, and begin to have a coaching conversation based on what it is you're trying to do to determine who you are, what you like. This is what I found, especially for a lot of times for women evangelists. At a certain point in our life, we are not sure of, this is going to sound crazy, we're not sure of who we are because we've done so much for everybody else. And I ask women, okay, so what do you want to do? And they don't really know. So coaching for them at that point is very helpful because it helps them discover who they are. And sometimes it even goes back to something they wanted to do when they were 10 years old and they couldn't do it for some reason. Then they grew up and had a family, had other things that came up, and it kind of derailed them. And you forget your own dreams and your own visions. And so coaching helps you to rediscover that. And so I would say get on a coaching discovery call. We do have some available on the website, but get on that coaching call and have someone coach through with you what it is you're trying to do and what you're trying to discover. But what I would say to that caller is that is a great place to start because you must discover who you are first before you can give yourself to the world.
Very good. And she said that is true. So I think her question has been answered. I want to appreciate the individual that submitted those 2 or 3 questions. And thank you for staying on and being a part. And I know, God is glorified when we have helped and you have passed on. And this is what it's all about.
It is
passing on your knowledge, your experiences to be a blessing to someone else. And I am so thankful, Evangelist, that you took the time to be a part and you have been a blessing to this ministry as well as your husband on several occasions, even with networking. I must say, and I'm just testifying now. I know we should really end, but just having friends, having the ability to network. Somebody has what you need. Somebody has what you're looking for. And people have asked me, how have you gotten all of these people? And I said, it's kingdom connections, and God has made it possible. I cannot take credit. So, young lady, I don't want to call her name but I want to thank you for being brave enough to ask your question, to just dig in. And she said, thank you for sharing your gift. And I want to make sure that I'm going to put it back up on the screen so that you can have Barbara Little's information and where you can find her information. It's available, and certainly she provides coaching, and it's an opportunity. I think she does still do weekly sessions or monthly sessions, and you can find them. So go to her website and you can find it at Barbara, and it's coming up here, BarbaraMLittles.com. And I tell you, you're going to be blessed by this woman of faith. And I'm just so appreciative because her husband and they do coaching with marriages, and they have done leadership coaching, and she's a great speaker and just a great resource. And I'm so grateful for people like that, that you can call and that you can touch. And actually, the person next Thursday is a referral from this person here who's coming on next Thursday, Gwendolyn Cook Jones, who's going to be talking about estate planning and wills. So I want you to come back, tell somebody that you need to get your end of life stuff in order. We all need to make sure that it's in order. So that's what we're doing, passing it on. We don't have to, we want to live life organized. We want to live life better. And that's what God is requiring us to do. And on Sunday, we have someone that's going, and she's young. I mean, and gifted. She was on ABC, did an interview, and it's on my page. And I'm gonna put her picture up. So since we're talking about that for Sunday, this young lady here who is Danielle, and she's out east actually, and she's a graduate of Howard University, and she's going to be talking about creating generational wealth. Starting as young as 3 years old, and they came to her house and wanted to know. She's a financial advisor, and I want you to come back on Sunday to hear Danielle Bird Thompson. And if you look on my Facebook page, you can see the interview that ABC, or either a CBS or ABC, that had an interview during Black History Month. So that's Sunday at 7 p.m. I tell you, God really calls the dwelling place. As we think about the scripture, people came unto Deborah to inquire of her wisdom and her knowledge. And I said, Lord, I didn't really have all the pieces, but I knew 20 plus years ago, he told me that's what it was about. And I didn't see it, but COVID came around, and I tell you, he kept at me, and look at it. Now it's almost 4 years, and I thank God tonight
That's
for
awesome.
such a successful time. Let's have a word of prayer, and we're going to end. I done got excited because
well, I just want to thank you. I'm going to pray us out, and I just want to thank you, Evangelist Roberson. I want to encourage those that are listening to tune in, especially on the generational wealth piece, because a lot of us look at that and say, oh, that's not for me. I don't really have, you have more than you think you do. And so that young woman will be able to steer you in the right direction, right? And so no matter how old you are, what age you are, you have grandchildren, etc., come and make sure that you're a part of that. But thank you, Evangelist, for all that you've done. Thank you for the dwelling place. This is a place also for people to build their network.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I just want to remind people of that. Father, we just thank you tonight for your presence here, Father. We thank you that you have shown up in a mighty way. Father, I thank you for Evangelist Roberson and for the ministry that you've placed in her. But Father, I also thank you more for her obedience, Father, to move out into that which you have called her to do, that she is connecting and she is blessing people with wisdom and knowledge and encouragement to move out to fulfill their destiny in you. And so, Father, I thank you for continuing to bless her, Father, continuing to bless the ministry, Father. Send the people, Father, as they come, Father. And I thank you for even financial increase, Father, for this ministry, Father, that she may continue to fulfill the work of the Lord. We thank you and we praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you all, those that have joined on tonight, and we appreciate you. Thank you, those from YouTube, those from what you can do for me. Each one of you, share the video. If it blessed you, share the video and return. Even if you have to look at the replay, just share the video and pray for the ministry. And if you want to sow a seed, you can also do that at DJ Roberson Ministry. And let me just put it up on the the screen. I don't go about begging people, but if you want to be a blessing to the ministry, you can. We appreciate you. It goes right back into the ministry. And I thank God for all of the people that God has put in my pathway. And one of them, you've heard tonight. We make sure that they are people of value, that represent this ministry, and you have represented us well, and we thank you once again. Sister Littles, won't you stay with us while we end our broadcast on tonight?